Welcome back to BaldHeaded Metal, guys, and welcome back to another album review. This time around for a thrash metal band coming out of Athens, Greece, and that's Amken with their new album, Passive Aggression. I couldn't pass me by Amken because I'm a fan of the bands from their last album, Theater of the Absurd. I love thrash metal. For those who are new to this channel, it's something I talk about a lot. It's a dying genre in my opinion that just doesn't get enough love, and there's a lot of interesting things going on in this riff heavy based music. And with Amken, when you jump into this band, I come from really getting into the new wave of thrash. I grew up with thrash metal since I was a kid, and then we got this resurgence of thrash in the late 2000s into early 2010s with bands that kind of inspired that I've stuck with me and I've really loved. Is something like Power Trip and Warbringer, Vector, Havoc, Evil, Pessimist, Toxic Holocaust, Violator, War Effect, and Municipal Waste were some of the examples that really I enjoyed. Discovering Amken just a couple of years ago before I started this channel was one of the bands that automatically connected with me and I just automatically loved what they were doing. They're not the most technically sound band out of the ones I've kind of named, and perhaps maybe there is for the room for them to grow and just only get better, but I think their songwriting is the strength of the band overall. It captures this 80s style thrash metal. It's not like what Power Trip would do, this crossover thrash style, or something like Vector when they've introduced a little bit more black metal into their thrash metal, or even something like Municipal Waste and Toxic Holocaust, which again is very crossover, very punkish effect, War Effect with that death metal sound that they've had. This is pure thrash metal record with some speed metal elements and songs, and it really calls back to it. Listening to it even from a production standpoint, I think you're gonna feel like you're back in the 80s listening to like a Megadeth album or something like that. It just lacks to me some of the technical prowess you would expect from a modern band, but they make it up with, like as I mentioned, with their really solid songwriting, with their really interesting songs, and some of them that really stuck out to me right away were something like I Am the One, or The Lives We Lead, not to mention something like Bliss and We Came From Nothing. Out of the 8 songs I would say overall on this album, essentially every single song was really interesting. It's an album that it took me a little bit of time to get into. I wasn't wowed by it automatically, but the more I listened to it and the more I got into it and kind of understood the place that they were coming from with this particular album and what they're trying to do with their band with now their second full-length album, is they're just paying homage to the old school. They're doing it in their own kind of way with their own little flavor, just inserting a little bit of that Greek attitude that they have, which Greeks are huge fans of heavy metal themselves. And just, it's a genre, I've mentioned this before, that is dying. It doesn't have as much music around it. Bands usually don't see as much success around it unless you're an old school band like Testament or Metallica or Megadeth, something like that. You don't see the same level of success. It's a lot of these guys that just have the passion for thrash metal that they want to write this kind of music, whereas other genres like maybe melodic death metal and things of that sort, black metal, they're really taking off and just going beyond with deathcore and metalcore and all that sort. And I want to say that this album, whether you're into thrash metal, not into thrash metal, I think if you just enjoy good music and you come in to know what you're expecting, if you're coming to expect this Rust in Peace or Master of Puppets, you might be disappointed. Yes, it's not as technical as those albums, and perhaps maybe not even doesn't reach the same heights. But it doesn't stop it from being a solid, good album from a thrash metal band that most likely will be overlooked by a lot of people, but I'm a big fan of. I want to do my job in spreading the message of this band because I think it's a worthwhile message. I really enjoyed the attitude. I always talk about a lot in heavy metal. The thing that attracts me a lot is an attitude of the band and the attitude they're trying to portray, that we are about this heavy metal life and sound. And you can hear that from these guys. They really have the passion for the music. And I only see them just growing better and better and just getting more intricate with their songwriting, which you can hear from the Theater of the Absurd, I think, into this new album. Fans of the album, fans of the band, I think you're really going to enjoy this. It's just like me, you go into it and you really love what the band does. I don't know if I would put this album automatically on my top tier list of a new wave of thrash metal bands, but it's something I'm keeping my eye on and seeing how this band only progresses and gets better and grows and really becomes this whole entity. And even Megadeth, it took them multiple albums to really get to Peace Cells, I think, which you see the progression in the band as well. It sometimes takes a little bit of a run to get into the full swing of things, and I feel like that's what's going to happen with this band, despite how much I already love their first two albums, which I want them to step out of this homage phase of thrash metal and really infuse it more with their own elements that they're interested in and really give it a more unique sound, which is, I would say, the only negative about this album. It does sound like one of those records from the 80s. That'll be the only negative thing I say, and perhaps some of the production, perhaps, and maybe it's due to budget, maybe it's a conscious choice to make it sound the way it does, but it does sound like a very old school record, and I would love a slightly more modern production from it so that you can really hear all the riffs the way you're meant to hear them. You know, sometimes even with headphones, I was really kind of listening to it to make sure that I catch all the interesting riffs that's going on in there. I would say Power Trip, it probably has one of the best productions of mixing old school with new school, so you can hear everything, but at the same time, it has this particular sound that you're looking for. That being said, I want to hear from fans of thrash metal, from fans of Amken. Once you get a chance to listen to the album yourselves when it comes out this Friday, what did you think of it? What do you think about the genre of thrash metal? Do you love it as much as I do, in this dying genre that I mentioned? And what are some of your favorite picks for thrash metal bands of new wave thrash metal? I would love to hear from that as well. And I'm gonna leave it on that. I want to start the conversation around this band and see what you guys think. Maybe those who have never heard of them. I highly recommend for you guys to give Theater of the Absurd a chance, and now Passive Aggression when it comes out. It's worthy records if you're into that genre style of heavy metal. And that being said, guys, make sure to take care of yourselves, stay safe out there, and most of all, keep it metal.